All right, so moving on to the next segment, we're going to pivot over here to the world of football inside the NFL world. And I'll be sharing my thoughts on the big blockbuster trade that we seen a few days ago between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. So a few days ago was a massive trade in the AFC Conference. You saw the Pittsburgh Steelers acquire Jalen Ramsey and tight end Jonnu Smith. In exchange, the Miami Dolphins gained Minkah Fitzpatrick back to South Beach in Miami. They acquired Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was traded back to the Dolphins again, like I just said. And the Dolphins are actually sending a 2027 7th-round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, in exchange, also will receive a 2027 5th-round pick. So this was a trade that we've seen. And to be honest with you guys, I'm not really moved by this trade. I'm not moved by this trade by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still view them a 9-8 team at best, scratching and clawing for one of the final wild spots in the AFC Conference. I don't think this trade really benefits the Pittsburgh Steelers or really benefits the Miami Dolphins. And yes, Jalen Ramsey is still one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but at the same time, you really traded away one of your best defensive players in Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is a proven leader and still, in my opinion, one of the best safeties in the league. Now you watch him go to South Beach, play with the Miami Dolphins, and trading for tight end Jonnu Smith, does that really improve the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively? If anything, they should have kept Minkah Fitzpatrick in Pittsburgh and never, ever did this trade in the first place. Because what do the Pittsburgh Steelers need? Not defense. They already have one of the best defenses in the league. They need offensive pieces. Because bringing in a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers still doesn't move me. You trading away George Pickens, controversial player or not, still does not move me. When you could have had him play alongside DK Metcalf, they don't have a running game, in my opinion, because Jaylen Warren is not proven that can be a starting running back for over 16 games in the National Football League yet in his career. I don't think this move moves me. If anything, the Pittsburgh Steelers are once again paying more money to the defense than the offense. And they're going to be, once again, for the third, fourth season in a row, the highest paid, the team that pays the most for their defense. And that doesn't really translate to the success for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need offense. Look at the previous Super Bowl winning teams of the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams. What do all those teams have in common? They spend the big bucks on offensive players, and that's the reason why they won Super Bowl titles. The Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to do it vice versa, putting all your money on defensive players. No, this is an offensive-driven league. You need a balance of both, but you need to put more money and more effort into having an offense that can compete in the AFC. No one really gives a damn if they can finish above 500 for nearly 20 years in a row anymore. They want to see championships back in Pittsburgh. And if you can't win titles and you can't contend with a high-scoring offense, then what the hell is the point of contending in the National Football League? You can't hide behind your defense forever. So, again, I just don't think this trade moves me. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are still 9-8 at best, and they still have their own problems to solve. Because, once again, if you kept Minkah Fitzpatrick, you could have traded for a wide receiver and got a strong number 2 to play alongside DK Metcalf. You could have called the Commanders and gambled to get Terry McLaurin, depending on how the contract situation is going with the Commanders. You could have called other teams to make a splash at the wide receiver position. You could have really monitored what the Miami Dolphins were really going to surrender in order to get Tyreek Hill off the books, because he's not happy in Miami right now with the Miami Dolphins. And the Pittsburgh Steelers adding Jalen Ramsey, a costly contract. Mind you, Jalen Ramsey still has the current contract, and he makes $26.6 million a year. That's actually $7 more million than Minkah Fitzpatrick on his contract, and they still have a big, tall task in front of them. They have to re-sign TJ Watt, who still wants his big money. And once you re-sign TJ Watt, I think he's going to re-sign. But once they do, that's at least $45 million a year or more that they're going to have to surrender to TJ Watt. So again, where is the money going offensively for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have a shot in the AFC North, let alone the AFC Conference, to get back to being a championship caliber team? I just don't see it. And I think after this year, they're going to completely fall apart. I think that's when the rebuild's going to go. But let's just stay positive for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Defense, when you look at the defense, it's still going to be strong. Still going to be a top 5, top 10 unit in the league. And I do like the depth at cornerback that they do have. I'm against this trade, but the positive side of this trade, you look at the depth that they have at the cornerback position. They now have Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter, who was drafted a few years ago out of Penn State. He's grown on me as a great defensive player. And they acquired Darius Slay, who was released by the Philadelphia Eagles during NFL free agency. So I like what they had depth-wise, but I think there's going to be a lot of fun matchups in the AFC North, or a lot of fun wide receiver and cornerback matchups next year. You're going to see Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Zay Flowers match up against Jalen Ramsey twice a year. You're going to see Jamar Chase, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, match up against Jalen Ramsey twice a year. Jamar Chase and Jair Alexander matching up twice a year. Nate Wiggins and T. Higgins matching up against each other twice a year. So there's a lot of fun wide receiver and cornerback matchups. But moving on to the other team that was a part of the trade, in the Miami Dolphins, this does not make them much better next year as well. Because even though Mika Fitzpatrick brings a lot to the table, how does this move the needle for the Miami Dolphins? First off, they have a quarterback problem. Tua Tagovailoa is incredible when he's on the field, but when he's not, it affects the team. So they have Quinn Ewers, I believe. Quinn Ewers, yeah, is going to be their backup, but we don't know if he's NFL material just yet. But not only that, Jalen Ramsey, who is still one of the best cornerbacks in the league, is now traded. Tyreek Hill is unhappy with the Miami Dolphins, and Mika Fitzpatrick is back with a franchise that he wanted out of. Remember, he was drafted by the Dolphins, traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now he's back in Miami. Different circumstances nowadays, but remember, he was unhappy with the franchise when former head coach Brian Flores moved him from the safety position and made him play at the nickelback corner position, which led to the bad blood, the bad beef that he had with the franchise. So now he's back there. I just don't see how this trade moves the needle for either the Dolphins or the Steelers moving forward. And I think if luck's not on the side of the Steelers, they're going to miss the playoffs. I think the Dolphins are going to miss the playoffs. 9-8 at best. I'm not moved by this trade. Again, it's an offensive-driven league. Look at the previous Super Bowl winning teams of the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Rams. They pay the big bucks to get offensive weapons, offensive pieces to help them contend for titles. Defense does win championships, yes. But how many years has the Pittsburgh Steelers hid behind the defense? Had mediocre quarterbacks playing at the position of Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. How many times are we going to see this for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or I'm just going to hide behind a washed-up Aaron Rodgers that's 41 years old and let one of the best defenses in the league carry us to an above 500 record. Is that really good enough for Mike Tomlin at this point? Is that good enough for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that has won 6 Super Bowls over the year? I just don't think so. So those are my thoughts on the big blockbuster trade that happened between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins.